What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. We got another video for you guys, and this time we're going to be talking about booster gangs. Yep, booster gangs, the nameless, faceless bad guys that are in your game, the cannon fodder, but there's actually a little bit more history to them, and there's a lot more nuance than just a bunch of faceless bad guys. But before we get into that, make sure you guys join our Discord community. The link will be in the description below. If you want to join a cool community that talks about Cyberpunk, Cyberpunk 2020, Red, and any other kind of tabletop games, then you have to look no further than the description where the link will be provided. Second of all, make sure you guys are subscribed to my podcast, Tabletop Cyberpunk. I've been having guests lately. That's the new trend that's going on my podcast. But it's really just a podcast about me rambling about Cyberpunk, about how you can be a better GM, and it's kind of an extension of this channel. So if you guys enjoy this channel and you enjoy my content, you're probably going to enjoy my podcast as well. So make sure you guys are subscribed and you'll get all the Cyberpunk goodies. On top of all of that, make sure you guys are following me on social media. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. You guys can find me all over the place. Make sure you join up just so you know about any cool projects that I'm doing. Like I just did a Cyberpunk panel with Cyberpunk Uncensored, aka Rob Mulligan, where me and him and Jay Gray and James Hutt from Artalsorian, we talked about Cyberpunk for over an hour. So if you guys want to know about that kind of stuff and things I'm doing in the future, make sure you guys are following me on social media. All right, now let's get back into this video. So how did booster gangs actually happen, and why are they called booster gangs? So these are gangs that have come up because of the collapse that's happened, and if you read into the lore, you'll know more about it. This isn't really a lore channel, but I'll give you guys the gist of it. After the collapse, there was a lot of unchecked crime happening in the world. The police, the government, the military, they just cannot get to all the bad things that are happening out there. On top of that, most people have lost their jobs, they lost their community, they've lost family members, and they really have nothing left in legal means to make money. So, what did they do? They turned to a life of crime. And turning to a life of crime can be the only way you can survive sometimes. When you have nobody left around you, the only brotherhood you have is the brotherhood with the criminals that you have become bunked up with. Most people that have joined a gang feel like there is no other choice for them. This is the only way that they could really make a living, make some money, make a name for themselves. And living in a gang territory, they get the protection of the gang that they're working with, as long as they're living by the same code and the same honor system that the gang is living by. Some gangs you might get jumped in where all the members beat the hell out of you. Other gangs could be like guardian gangs where you guys all band together and protect your neighborhood from other booster gangs. There's all types of gangs, all types of flavors, but at the end of the day, Cyberpunk is about survival, and these booster gangs are no different than any other organization trying to survive. In the dark future, the streets run red with the blood of your enemies, and where they run red are in your territories. Booster gangs have their territories, they have their hangouts, they have their spots where they like to be. And if you come into the wrong area, wearing the wrong set of clothing, holding the wrong kind of insignia, you could find yourselves on the other end of a double-barrel shotgun. The booster gang is just like any other corporation or nomad family. It is your identity. It is everything that you are. It's everything that your future is going to be. And you're looking out to make sure that your leaders in your gangs are appreciative of the things that you do, or you might take over their spot, and you might be the leader that has to fight off the people trying to come up onto you. Because the police can't get to everything and they can't get to most neighborhoods and take care of things, street justice is something that you see all the time. And who enforces street justice? Well, the booster gangs, of course. The gangs are the ones that make the rules, they make the laws, and they enforce the laws. Some of the laws may be as trivial as you can't wear red in a Crips neighborhood. Some of them might be as important as you cannot steal from certain people in this neighborhood. Some of them are protected, but other ones are targets. Either way, your ignorance of the street laws are no excuse for breaking them. You could pay for your life for something that you didn't even know that you were doing. That's why you stay in your neighborhood, you keep your head down, and you make sure you know the rules of the place that you're hanging out in. Much like their nomad counterparts, gangs are just out there to survive, and they realize that this illusion that there's some semblance of life, a white picket fence, 2.5 kids. All that stuff is just an illusion. It's a pastime. It doesn't exist anymore. All that exists is the present, the now. Your heart is beating, the blood is pumping through your veins, and you got chrome on your body. This is what you can understand, the tangible thing of survival, right in front of your eyes. And much like nomads got away from the city. They got away from everything, and they realized that all this government and rules and laws and regulations, they don't really apply because no one can enforce them. The same kind of mentality is kind of happening on the streets as well. These booster gangs have realized that the cops cannot come and they cannot take care of certain situations. Killing someone on the streets with a few witnesses does not automatically mean that you're going to be in the slammer. So because of that, gangs are a little more cavalier and they're more liberal in the ways that they operate on the streets. And because of that, gangs run the streets. They are the streets. And you can't do anything on the streets without the gangs letting you do it. And that is exactly why corporations and all these organizations work with booster gangs. Booster gangs are the lifeblood of the street. And if you need to know where somebody is, where to get some contraband, where you need to observe somebody to put a hit out on them, the person that you deal with is a fixer that deals with gangs, or gangs that deal with the fixer. Gangs know all the rumors. They know who's in town, who's not in town. They know how to find people. Gangs will do the dirty work, the work that you can't do. You can't get your name sullied with some of the grimy things that happen on the streets. So you have to hire these gangs. These gangs have to exist for everything to be in a balance. A lot of people, they use gangs in their games just as cannon fodder for the PCs to kill. And that's understandable. It's like bandits in D&D. We all understand what their role is and how they play. But booster gangs are a lot more nuanced than that. Like I said, they run the streets. The streets are their corporation, and there's certain territories is where they operate. And if you want to go there and try to influence an area and try to move your agenda in that place, you have to work with these gangs. You cannot do it on your own. So they're not just a bunch of faceless enemies. They're people that used to be teachers. They used to be husbands and fathers and daughters and all of the above. But the whole world has gone to shit and they've given up on all semblance of life, and they've taken up their gun, they've taken up their mantis blades, and they're taking on the streets because they're out to get theirs. They're out to survive. Now, when you're thinking of booster gangs, just think of them as some kind of paramilitary force. They have guns, they have ammunition, they have all kinds of bad things that can hurt people. And because of that, they're more kind of a small military force than just a bunch of people hanging out. There are different flavors and you can mix and match them. I'll give you guys some examples of what type of booster gangs are out there, and hopefully it can help you in your games. The first type of gangs are combat gangs. They're exactly how it sounds. These guys are the closest to a military force you'll get on the streets. They have discipline, firepower, and the desire to crush their enemies under their steel-toed boots. Second, you have violent gangs. Violent gangs, these guys are sadistic killers that are out for blood and just for the thrill. They may take up the form of some kind of killer clowns as an example, just to add an extra layer of sadism to their violence. But the number one thing that they love and they crave is violence. Why? That's up to you to decide. Now let's move on to a little bit of a nuanced type of gang, self-defense gangs or guardian gangs. These gangs have originated from necessity. They were tired of being victims to other gangs and decided to band together to counter gang activity in their neighborhood, whether they're persecuted for their sexual orientation or just persecuted because they live in certain gang neighborhoods. These gangs have risen up together and they've decided to defend themselves, their neighborhood, their family, and any other innocents that are in their area because the police just can't do it. Next up, we have cult gangs. These gangs have joined for a greater purpose beyond their own existence. They believe in something and fight for that belief. And these can be some of the scariest gangs that you'll ever come across because you never get between a man and his beliefs. The most notable type of cult gang are the Inquisitors. These are people that have decided that transhumanism and cyberware and all the things that we're doing in our life to enhance ourselves are actually blasphemous, and the body is the temple, and anybody that has cyberware on them is just going to be a victim of cyberpsychosis in the near future. There is no end. Just like the iPhone just keeps coming out. There's a little bit better, a little bit better. The same type of mentality goes with cyberware. You're just going to add more and more until there's no human beings left. And the Inquisitors feel like they're saving humanity, even if they have to blow up a school or blow up a hospital to prove their point. Now we're going to take a dive into the weird and the fun. Party gangs. These guys are out to have a good time and nothing else. They might get violent every now and then, but their main purpose is to have a good time. Drugs, dopers, anything you can think of. Uppers, downers, lefters, righters. They're drinking smash. They're going to the next party. They're going to the next area where it's an underground area that nobody knows about. Or they might just take over a bus station and realize that, hey, this is our new spot. This is where we're going to party. And they're just out to have a good time, to escape from the dark future. Next up, we have poser gangs. Now, this is an extra unique flavor that comes with Cyberpunk 2020, and it's one of the first things I ever noticed when I got into the game. These are the real weirdos. They have taken a liking to a specific kind of pop culture reference or fictional world, and they want to make it a reality. For example, the Kennedys is a perfect example. All the members take pride in the fact that they've gone under the knife to look as much like John F. Kennedy as possible. They talk like him, they walk like him, they even act like him. They're obsessed with the man and have turned his legacy into their own sick, twisted form of having fun. These types of gangs can range from not too serious to a horrific threat. It all really depends on what type of poser gang they are, what kind of reference they're going to make, and this leaves a lot of room for game masters to make something out of this world. For example, in my game, I have the Cult of the One Glove, which is a poser gang where everybody thinks they're Michael Jackson, and their leader looks most like Michael Jackson, and everybody else is a little bit less looking like Michael Jackson. And they act like him, they talk like him, they hee, and they do all those things, but on top of all that, they kill, they murder, they kidnap, they steal, they do all the things that gangs do, but with this extra layer of creepiness, because it's a bunch of Michael Jacksons doing it. And poser gangs are, like I said, a unique part of Cyberpunk. With the prevalence of biosculpting and transhumanism and with cyberware and all those kinds of things, you can really be somebody else completely, head to toe, voice box and all. You can completely change yourself and be the person that you've always wanted to be, whether it's somebody famous or like a pop icon or whatever it can be, a fictional character like a World of Warcraft orc or something like that. Now, how does that translate into your game world? You have to know that gangs are pretty much on the same level of most PCs. Unless you're playing some kind of corporate level, full board conversion, high-end cyberpunk style of playing, most people kind of do something in the middle where you're all edge runners and you're trying to hustle on the streets and make a little bit of cash here and there. And if you do that, you'll probably be running into gangs more often than anything. They're the people that are hanging out in the bad parts of town that you're going to do the operations that you're doing in. And because of that, the player characters have dealings with the gangs on a higher basis than even civilians or cops or corpos or anything else. Gangs are the first thing that they deal with, the first conflict, the first diplomacy happens with gangs. So you really have to put a lot of thought into who these gangs are, where they're from, how they behave, because your PCs are going to be interacting with them on a daily basis. And remember, the gangs are not just fodder. Even though we treat them that way and they're easily killed by the players, you have to realize that these are people. These are people that used to be normal people just like anybody else, but they made a decision one day that they wanted to take things into their own hand. And yeah, maybe they got lost in the whole thing about being in this gang and this code of ethics. But think about it. If you've lost everything, you've lost your family, you lost your job, there's nobody around you, all you have is this gang, you can get lost in that. You can get lost in their code of ethics because you finally have something that you can fight for. And if you think about it that way, you can have a lot of compassion for these weird doped up gangers that are going around murdering people. In a sad way, we can kind of understand how they got to this point. They're victims of the dark future just like anybody else. And because of that, there's consequences to actions that they commit and you commit against them. If you just go around murdering gangs and killing them, you're sending a message out that these guys go around killing gangs and they kill gang members, so maybe you're next. And alliances will form where alliances first weren't there. Two territories will come together, two gangs will merge and come against the player characters because they feel like they're hunted, they're cornered. These players are going around 4 solos with assault rifles, murdering all these gangs. Well, we better get together, band our resources, and go against these players because they're coming and they're disrupting the sanctuary that we have, the power that we have in this territory. So they're not just a bunch of bad guys wandering around in a dungeon or something like that, like a bunch of kobolds or some bears in a forest that your players are killing like D&D. No, these are people. They have feelings, they have lives, they have history, and there's consequences to any action that you take against them. Sometimes you want the carrot, sometimes you want the stick. You have to decide as a player character and as a GM how everything is going to go around. Remember that Cyberpunk is about reputation, how you deal with these gangs, how you deal with them in a personal basis, diplomacy or combat basis. All these things leave a reputation. And you want to make sure that your reputation is always good in Cyberpunk because that can help you survive. It can help you get the things that you need to. You never know who's watching. You never know who has your name on their lips when they're talking about you behind your back in between sessions. The players might be over here doing something, killing a bunch of gangs. Word gets out over there. And the players need to go over there tomorrow. Well, what's going to happen? Those people know about the players now. Anonymity and stuff like that doesn't exist if you're going around murdering people and leaving a calling card. So you have to understand that there is a lot more nuance to it when you're dealing with gangs. Well, I hope this information found you guys well. I really appreciate all the support. Make sure you guys like and subscribe and leave me some cool comments because I love hearing what you guys have to say. I really appreciate all the help and all the support I've been getting, especially as I've been recovering. And I just want to thank you guys for being there for me. We got more stuff stored in the future, so make sure you're subscribed and you hit that bell icon so you have notification of my next video. All right, guys, we'll see you on the next one. Much appreciated. Take care.